Okay, so on screen we have Florian Marku versus Moran. This fight, if you can even call it that, lasted about a minute, and it's happened a matter of minutes ago. And there are some things that I want to pick out because I think they're actually going to be quite interesting. Good things, not so good things, but surely plenty of lessons that we can take away and should be very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Firstly, I like the way that Moran has come out. He is the taller man with the longer reach, I imagine. Essentially, the guy's probably going to want to command a bit more from long range. We can see he's extending that lead hand already. And we're going to see that that's a bit of a theme, and he also looks to manage the distance quite well with his feet. On the other hand, we have Florian Marku, who is a bit more reserved. He's not extended himself so much. But what he's looking to do is basically find routes around that lead hand. And I think he does so very well. So we can see here that just by using his advancements towards Moran, he's able to get information on how Moran is going to react. We can see here just this slight forward inclined position over the lead leg in the southpaw versus southpaw matchup. We can see that Moran doesn't want Marku to come closer, and he feints, pretty hard feint, to get Marku to leave that position and go to the back half of his stance where he's a bit further away. And we can see, I like the way that Marku reacts here, and he actually foreshadows the big punch that sets up the stoppage. And he's gone from a bit more of the front half, just crossed the centre line. He hasn't returned to the centre line, he's actually gone to the back half of his stance. And then he vacates, so there's space. So not only is he using his head movement, but he's also using his feet. That's very good stuff. Some different elements, a couple more layers. And he also gets the understanding, he gets the info that Moran is looking to keep him off of that more forward position where he's closer to Moran. And he uses that information and makes an adaptation by getting his hands up a bit higher. And we can see that he just has an idea of where Moran is going to threaten him, and he can prepare for it. But if we just go back a bit to where Marku, see, steps out here, this is, I don't want to say a red flag, but it's potentially something that could be capitalized by higher level opposition, whereby Marku has this rhythm step where he steps out of range, as we see here, and then immediately, the wrong part. Here it is. This is the rhythm step. So we see Marku is out of range, big gap between them, but then he steps straight back in. And Moran looks to counter that. He's got good eyes himself, looks to counter that with a jab. Commits quite a bit though, and this once again foreshadows this entire sequence, foreshadows the stoppage, because we see that Marku has been able to come off the centre line and slip to the back half of his stance. We see Moran here quite a bit heavier on the lead leg with that jab, and neither man really ready, particularly Marku, to commit. But we see both guys kind of get back onto what they were doing before. I really like this active guard and how Marku is advancing, because he's not just staying on the centre line, he's going from one side to the other. And this, once again, kind of foreshadows the end of the fight, whereby Marku, he slips forward, and then he slips back, and then forward again. Now that backward slip, that could be a feint to the body, or it could just be a defensive slip as it is here. Now this second slip to the front half of his stance is just that, it's a slip. However, that could also be a left hand over the top. And we see Moran still doing a good job of managing whenever Marku does make it to that position where Moran doesn't want him. Moran just manages the distance. He might take a couple of steps out or a little half step out, use the lead hand as well, but not with that much commitment. And I just really like the way Marku uses the rhythm step again here. Moran times him. I think Marku is still a bit wise to that timing. However, I think he does get caught in a few moments. But it's a little bit rhythmic. It's a little bit pattern based. However, it is effective because you can see Marku's using his eyes, using his brain, seeing how he can find some avenues around this lead hand, which, credit to Moran, does seem to have good timing. But see, the thing is, does it have good timing because Moran is just that good, or is it because Marku is presenting him with a pattern, an engineered pattern that he can capitalize on? But obviously, Marku have an advanced knowledge of that. So Moran making a little adaptation here by, instead of going straight with the lead hand, he's instead looking to go around the side, bit of guard manipulation, trying to throw off Marku and change his expectations of the lead hand. We see, I think this is maybe the third or fourth rhythm step from Marku. He's out, he's back in, and even with the high guard, Moran is able to catch him a bit more cleanly with that jab. But we see Marku not necessarily deterred, and he gets straight back into his active guard, looking to work around that left hand, or that lead hand rather. Good management of distance by Moran, using the lead hand and the defense, so it's kind of twofold there. Looking to come around to the side, I think he spots that Marku, okay, he's a bit more back now, but then he's going to step forward, and then Moran commits quite a bit, comes around the side, but then controls straight away. So it's not just committing and then waiting for the return. This is a threat to Marku to keep him in place. And then Moran also got the angle there. And once again, we see Marku, is he just slipping, or is he going to the body, or is he setting up something to the head? We can see he's getting closer. He's getting closer, really comfortable advancing towards Moran. So even though Moran is doing a good job of managing that distance, Marku isn't deterred. He understands that he is aware of what Moran is trying to do, and he's starting to tailor his offense towards that. And still respecting the feints, though. That's an important theme. See Moran use the left hand here. That's good. A bit of creativity. I think that's the first time we've seen him do that in this fight, but it's an option. It's definitely there. And we can just see him being unsettled by Marku a little bit. And here is where it just goes catastrophically wrong. What happened? Obviously, Moran got hit upside the head, but we see here, Marku, he's a moving target. He's a dynamic target. There's a lot to focus on. How close is he? Where are his hands? Where's his head? And that seems to instill a bit of panic in Moran, which is one of the key effects of an active guard. Is it keeps you a moving target, but also presses your opponent a little bit, puts some pressure on them, because they're having to keep track. They're having to stay awake to determine where you are and find you. And Moran really commits hard to this jab. We can see, just look at the inclination of his body. You can tell a lot of the weight and a lot of the pressure is on the lead leg. And Marku's managed to successfully come away to the back half of his stance, loading that left side, which is now the power punch, and can just clean him out with this overhand left. Basically a pull counter into the left hand. And that has Dylan Moran on Queer Street. And this is an important lesson. I think there are quite a few. Is obviously the importance of an active guard. We see that from both guys. They both have moving elements. With Moran, it's more so the lead hand and the distance with his feet. With Marku, not so much the lead hand. It's more of the head positioning, the head movement, and the footwork, how close he is, how far away he is. But with Marku, just really sets the tone. Because if we go back to here, we can see, where is that? You can see a lot of the head movement where he's trying to work around the jab. But we see here, what is that? He slips to his back foot, or the back half of his stance, and it could potentially be a jab to the body. But then it's followed by this slip to the front half of his stance. No different to what he does here. The only thing is, he has an opportunity for offense because Moran has committed to the jab quite hard. So he's a bit more forward, then he goes backwards, then he goes forward again. Exactly the same. So this is what I mean. There was a lot of foreshadowing as to how this stoppage would come about. And there's a bit more where Marku pins him down on the ropes and just lays into him a bit. Almost gets taken out of an uppercut there. So yeah, Marku might want to be a little less gung-ho, a little less cavalier on his way in the future against a better level opponent. But for the most part, he's just plastering Moran, nails him. But some important lessons, obviously, the importance of an active guard, not only for offense but defense. It's twofold. Having multiple elements to how you're approaching your opponent. Using seemingly inconsequential movements like little slips like this. Little slips forward, back. How is your opponent going to react to those movements? If your opponent doesn't, then it's probably because they haven't been trained to look for that stuff and react to it. But if they do, you get intel. How is he going to react to this? How is he going to react to that? And then how can I adapt? What adaptations can I make going forward? But also, and this might be a little bit more of an elementary lesson, is we're often taught in the beginner days of boxing, you first go to the amateur gym, the jab, when in doubt, throw a jab. And now you can understand the rationale because the jab is such a valuable weapon. It sets up offense, more meaningful offense. It also can be a protective measure, but it is also an opportunity. So sometimes committing to a jab like this can really backfire. And I know this, I sound like Captain Obvious saying this because this happens to Moran, but it's something to kind of evolve your thinking. It's not kind of ABC. It's not as simple as that. There are a lot of dynamics at play here, and you have to be mindful before you just completely commit to something, even something as pivotal as the jab. So some important lessons I feel highlighted here. I hope they're clear. If anything needs to be explained further, please let me know in the comments and let me know your thoughts, and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you on the next one.